As 1917 began, the world was still engulfed in what many were calling the war to end all wars. England and her allies were facing an acute shortage of explosives until a patriotic Jewish scientist named Chaim Weizmann approached the British government with a formula he had devised for TNT. It became a pivotal factor in turning the tide of the war. Refusing a proposed royal honor for his service to the crown, he instead asked that something be done for his people, the Jews, in exile from their homeland around the world. That something was truly explosive. On November 2nd, 1917, while the world was still in the throes of a world war, Baron Lord Rothschild received a letter from London. It was brief.
Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with the Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment in Palestine of a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this objective. Yours sincerely, Arthur James Balfour.
Those powerful words became a mighty wind that swept through worldwide Jewry, fueling Zionist fires of hope that after 2,000 years, the exiled nation of Israel would again have a home in the land of David. 1 month later, on December 11, 1917, British General Edmund Allenby accepted the surrender of Jerusalem from the Turks, who had held the Holy City captive for more than 400 years. The month following, Chaim Weizmann, who would eventually become Israel's first president, met with Faisal Hussein, king of Iraq and Syria. King Hussein wrote in Mecca's Al-Qibla that year,
"The resources of the country are still virgin soil and will be developed by the Jewish immigrants."
A year later, the king officially executed a treaty with a Zionist organization. At the Paris Peace Conference, which officially ended World War I, he wrote,
"We Arabs, especially the educated among us, look with the deepest sympathy on the Zionist movement. Our delegation here in Paris regard them as moderate and proper."
The League of Nations ratified the Balfour Declaration and, at the request of the Jewish delegation, assigned to Great Britain a mandate to carry out the declaration's aim of establishing the Jewish national home in Palestine. But Jewish trust in British friendship was about to be shattered. London had its own aims for the Middle East, to create a pan-Arab union of nations dependent on Britain. A Jewish state would be uncontrollable and independent. Britain reversed its support of the Balfour Declaration and now opposed Zionist goals of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. In 1939, Sir Winston Churchill cautioned, "The acts that we engage in for appeasement today, we will have to remedy at far greater cost and remorse tomorrow." The British government issued a white paper in 1939, declaring its abandonment of the Zionist policy. 75,000 more Jews would be allowed into Palestine over the next 5 years, and then the gates would be permanently closed. Britain implemented the white paper's provisions, in effect trapping untold numbers of Jews in Nazi Europe who might have otherwise escaped even during the war. To ensure their policy was carried out, the British Royal Air Force and Navy instituted a blockade around Palestine. No Jewish immigrant was allowed in. Those who defied the blockade were called illegals, and there were thousands of them. Desperate men and women and children, risking everything to escape the Nazi ovens. A courageous few made it through, but most suffered a different fate. The little-known and tragic story of the Struma is typical. Escaping Hitler's ovens with 769 Jews on board, an aging cattle cargo barge named the Struma sailed from Constanza in Romania on December 12, 1941. 3 days later, just as the engine failed, the ship arrived in Istanbul, in Turkey. The Turks refused to let them repair the engine and would not let them land, citing security restrictions. The British ambassador was more direct, firmly stating that his government did not want these people in Palestine. After 2 months of quarantine in the Istanbul harbor, the Struma was refused further sanctuary, and though it was unseaworthy, it was sent back out to sea. Still within sight of the harbor, an enormous explosion ripped through the doomed ship from a Russian torpedo. The Struma sank, with all 769 souls aboard, save one. By the end of the war, 6 million Jews had been exterminated by the Nazi Holocaust. World sympathies toward the Jews forced the newly formed United Nations to face the Palestinian issue. On November 29, 1947, the UN passed Resolution number 181, proposing the partitioning of the British Mandate territory into 2 states, Jewish and Arab.
Afghanistan? No. Argentina? Argentina? Abstention. Egypt? No. Soviet Union? Yes. The United Kingdom? Abstain. The United States? Yes.
The resolution of the DUC Committee for Palestine was adopted by 33 votes, 13 against, 10 abstentions.
The plan was only a shadow of the promise of 30 years before. With few friends in power, the Zionist leaders accepted the plan. The Arab states rejected it.
The holy city of Jerusalem is a scene of bloodshed and terror as the United Nations division of Palestine inflames violence between Arab and Jew. Burning, shooting, and pillaging mark the beginning of the partitioning. Youths of Haganah, Jewish military organization, try to salvage merchandise from looters in the mixed area of the city. 91 lives are lost in the first few days. The British are to start evacuating their army in May. The 7 nations of the Arab High Council plan organized resistance to the partitioning. Haganah swears it will not be intimidated.
And so, the stage was set. On May 14, 1948, the British Mandate officially ended. That morning, the Jewish People's Council gathered at the Tel Aviv Museum to sign a proclamation read by David Ben-Gurion, officially declaring the sovereignty of a new Jewish state as of midnight that night. 11 minutes later, the United States officially recognized the new nation of Israel. It's so quiet now, but on the morning of May 14, 1948, the air in this room was electric. This was the final crossroads. From this moment, there was no going back. Everyone knew that they could, and in fact many would, pay with their lives for what they were about to do. Yet they remained committed to a course of freedom and independence, for the rebirth of their nation after 2,000 years in exile. And so they signed their names and their lives to whatever lay ahead. That Israel survived that first day, that these people went on to build their nation despite enduring incredible hardships and in defiance of enemies dedicated to their annihilation, may be the greatest living evidence in our time of the reality of miracles.